prophecies, revelations, economic collapse, martial law, social and civil war, aliens, human hybrids, Nephilim, the Great Deception, world chaos, tsunamis. You want to stay tuned for special edition End Time Revelations with Pastor Henry Schaefer and Pastor Steve Hall.
Well, hello and welcome, CSRA. Welcome to another episode of Project SEER. I'm your host, Henry Schaefer, and I'm in the studio here with my shotgun riding with me here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. It's a wonderful, it's a pretty day outside, but it looks like it's wanting to storm a little bit.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what is it, the 29th of June?
It is.
Isn't that amazing?
We only got 1 day left, and then we're going to be in hot July.
Isn't that amazing what's taking place here? Well, we're 2 legs of a 3-legged stool today. So I don't know how we're going to do this. We're going to have a balancing act. Brother Steve, he is on assignment, and
yes,
we'll talk about the assignment at another date, but it's good to have you in the studio. We want to welcome in our listening audience to a live episode of Project SEER, so you listen in any other time than 2 o'clock on this Thursday, June the 29th. You are listening to a rebroadcast of this program here, and let me just go ahead and tell you, if you'd like to go to YouTube, we are streaming live on YouTube. Studio WUCC 99.9 on YouTube. Look at that little red live button right there. You can watch us in the studio. We're going to wave right now. Look at it, brothers. We're waving at the camera right there. So if you're listening in, just sit on back. If you're traveling down the road and you're listening on your radio in your car, then you make sure that you know that you can leave right on out and get into your computer or your smartphone or a tablet, and you can listen to a stream around the world. You don't have to be in your vehicle. This is kind of like a 24/7 gospel preaching on the radio.
Yeah,
amen?
we have a lot of good conversations.
A lot of ways that people, and you know, people like they tune into this kind of stuff here. You know,
they do.
So listen, let's go ahead and kind of like broach this subject here today. And what we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about, well, the title of the program today is Summoning Demons with Your Smartphone.
Yeah.
Or, you know, it's kind of like, who invented these smartphones or these contraptions, this new technology? Where did it come from? What's going on here about that? So that's kind of like what we're going to be discussing here today. So if you're listening on your smartphone, you know, they call it an Apple.
Yes, they do.
It's an Apple phone,
and there's a reason for that.
That's a, you know, and I tell everybody, I says, you know what that thing comes from, don't you? I said, I'd rather have an Android any day than an Apple phone. Hallelujah! But I have an Apple. I mean, I have an Apple phone right now, so that's my first one I've ever had. Really.
Yeah, we're gonna. I know we have a video we're gonna show here in just a moment. We have. If you get into reading and getting on the internet and studying about the technology of this day and age and how much they are able to do, it's just it's unimaginable. I mean, we have become so far technological that they say that if they invent something, if they actually invent a thing, that it's obsolete probably within 6 months. And so I've been doing a lot of reading, Pastor, about in the days of Noah. I've been looking at the days that we are living in, the time we're living in. We know that technology flourished in the time of Noah. People say, well, how do you know that? Well, you know that because look at the size of the ark and look at the speed of the ark being built and how they were able to do that. And there's other things. We'll get into that on another program. But I always tell people it took 120 years for Noah to build the ark. So if you started a project in 1894, if I got my numbers right, 1898, somewhere like that, it would have took to 2015, somewhere in there, for the ark to be finished. So look at the time span. You're looking at 43,000 months, 43,200 months, 1,440
well, if they built the United States with all the EPA stuff, still probably be working on waiting on the permit.
Well,
till Donald Trump got in there, wiped out EPA.
But what I'm looking at this today, and what we're going to look at is how fast the human mind has progressed, and how fast it progressed in the last days of Noah. In the last days of Noah, things happened so progressively quick that the world was destroyed. And now Jesus says that even as it was in the days of Noah, shall soon will be the coming of the Son of Man. And then we go through the Word of God, and we study and we read and we understand that as technology increases, that the coming of the Lord is even sooner. And so when you look at 1903, when the Wright brothers first flew the plane, man had rode a horse, rode a wagon. The Model T was just about to be put online in Detroit. It's getting close. There was the steam train. But in 1903, the Wright brothers flew a plane, a mile and a half, something like that, in a circle. But then something happened in 1947, Chuck Yeager broke the sound barrier at Mach 1. It's such a high altitude that he almost clipped going into outer space. And so we see from 1903 to 1947 just an acceleration of the mind. And then between that time of 1900 and 1945, technology just zoomed. And Tesla, Edison, different minds, Albert Einstein, all these different minds that came to the forefront. We had the atomic bomb was invented. The splitting, they were able to compress plutonium and make it do what they wanted it to do. And then there was the submarines and the other technology. Mostly the technology went to making some type of device to kill people in another part of the world. But they were also looking at space probes at that time. They were already looking at putting some type of device in the orbit around the Earth. And so how did we go from...
Well, the Nazis was looking at doing the death ray.
Yes.
I mean, when you talk about doing the probes around the world back in the 40s, 45, in that time frame, they're Wunder weapons.
Yeah, it was.
The Wunder weapon. It was, they knew that they could already send a missile into outer space, but they were talking about how would they launch out and put the platform there so that they could focus the sun's rays through a device and to be able to annihilate the oncoming enemies. That's what they were doing. I mean, they had the idea, and they were well on their way of doing those things when when the war started to come to a head, and towards the end of it and everything. But and we got their scientists. Von Braun. We got there first and got their scientists. The Soviets got some of them. We got them, and were able to whitewash all the work that they did. And then we started using their brains, what vision they had for space, and actually use that to get our stuff into outer space.
And then when you think about the technological acceleration between 1900 and where we are now, it really is astounding. You go from 1903 to 1969, we're walking on the moon, supposedly. There's some out there that doesn't believe that really happened, but we do know that when we see how fast
well, let's do this here. If they didn't, they sure did fake it pretty good.
They did.
I mean, they spent a lot of money faking that thing.
That would be the major cover up of the world.
Yeah, and they may not have, but it's they spent a lot of money faking it, like Hollywood. But anyway,
but the reason we're going this route is a lot of this technological information that has been been able to produce things in our world.
Right.
A lot of concern now is being brought to attention because certain visionaries of our day and age we're finding out now that they're making claims of things that they had help. They had either some type of spiritual enlightenment to get the knowledge to do what they did. When back in the 70s, you know, there were rock and roll groups that were famous for, if you played their records backwards, they said something
called backward masking.
Yeah, and then I remember,
and it really was real.
Yeah,
too. It is real
in Israel. And I remember when Led Zeppelin come out with some of their lyrics and stuff. A lot of people don't know it today, but if you take a lot of the books like Lord of the Rings and other things, some of these storylines came out of some of Led Zeppelin's songs and lyrics. And so when they were writing some of their music, like Stairway to Heaven, they were asked one time in an interview, you can pull this stuff up on YouTube, but they were asked, you know, where did you get the idea for this song? And they'll tell you, well, we were on psychedelic drugs, taking things like LSD and other drugs, and we were in an enlightenment where we were fed these words and fed these ideas for these songs, and so they actually make a statement that they didn't come up with it on their own.
Yeah.
And when they did, a lot of their lyrics are profoundly satanic. And then when you look at Harry Potter and you look at Lord of the Rings and the magic and all the sorcery and all the demonic input into the films and the books, the entire scenario of these things were fed into the writers' minds, the movie makers' minds, to entertain. But when we take all this into a full account, we see that there are people even in the entertainment world all the way into the scientific world that have dabbled in demonic places, and they claim now that they had demonic help or they had extraterrestrial help in developing their techniques. And that's where we're going this on the program today. And I know you're getting ready to play this YouTube video. It's Elon Musk, where he's talking about artificial intelligence, but he's also talking about how we're going too far. He feels like we've gone too far, and we're about to wreak some havoc in the future if we don't get it under control.
Now, how did you say his name?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Do you know who he is?
I'm not really familiar a whole lot about him, but I know he's famous for a lot of his technological input.
Yeah. I think I did a thing here. Born June 28th. What'd you say? Oh, it's 29. He's born yesterday. Huh? Born June 28th, 1971. Is a South African-born Canadian-American business magnate, investor, engineer, inventor. Is this the guy here?
Yes.
He is the founder, CEO, CTO of SpaceX. Are those ones that does the rockets?
They're ones that are trying to be able to take you on a field trip into outer space.
And then don't they land the rocket back down?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they've had some success, some failures. But if they land one rocket back, that's tremendous success there.
And there'll be people that'll pay millions of dollars to be able to go for a ride that will last, maybe 30 minutes, something like that.
And it's a co-founder, a Series A investor, CEO, product architect. Now look at this, of Tesla, Inc., co-chairman of OpenAL AI. I must be AI. Founder of CEO in Neuralink. So I mean, he's into the technology. He's in.
Something on the web about investor CEO product.
Listen. Now listen here. That's my smartphone, and that Siri listening to me talk, and it says, "Well, I found something on the web about CEO, product architect," and I'm going. Now, it's amazing that my smartphone's talking to me.
That's right.
Right now, and this was not planned either.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like what we've been talking about, wasn't it?
And that's something too that a lot of people don't know, it that now they've incorporated sounds, technological sounds in your smartphone that are not human detectable.
Yeah.
And so those phones now can send out sounds or messages in some type of just a short phase, and within 12 feet of another iPhone, it can relay messaging. And people say, well, why would they want to do that? It's called Big Brother, because they know if you have a smartphone, they know where you are.
Yeah.
They know you can be in a bathroom in Walmart.
Well, you know, a lot of people don't know where they are.
That's it.
With the smartphone.
Yeah.
Because that's why they got one, so they can figure out where they
That's
are
it.
at, and it tells them. But Big Brother always knows.
Big Brother knows.
He knows
Big
where
Brother.
you're at.
And so as we used to say when I was young, rage against the machine is taking place in the world today. Steve Jobs. We're going to talk about him.
Let's talk about Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs.
The late Steve Jobs.
The late Steve Jobs. He, as we all know, he announced the iPhone in 2007. In January of 2007, and he digitally connected society. Just a little bit about Reed.
Let's talk about it.
He went to Reed's College in Portland, Oregon.
All right.
He was 19 years old, but he dropped out of college. We know that in the 70s,
he's a smart man.
he was a smart man.
Well, if he say he dropped out of college, he's a smart man. He realized this wasn't going to work. This is not the place to go if you're going to make some money. Go ahead.
But in 1970, he went to India, and he got involved with yogi.
He didn't get a guru over there.
He did get a guru, and he became spiritually enlightened. Yes, and he had a calling into cosmic spiritual enlightenment, and he went to India. He became a follower of a man named Neem Karul Baba, and he was a Hindu Guru. How do you say that?
Guru.
Guru.
Yeah.
Guru. Yeah.
Guru.
Now this man claimed to have no father, no mother. He claimed he had no known history. There wasn't any known history on him. And he professed to be an incarnated being.
Sounds like Melchizedek.
He does.
In the Bible.
He claimed to be a incarnated being, and that he could take any form or being because he was celestial, and and he was to guide humanity.
Okay, let's hold on. You know who that sounds like? You know what that sounds like to me?
Sounds like Lucifer to me.
Yeah, but in reality, let's just talk on Project SEER.
Oh, okay.
What that would be, something like that. When you tell me and give me that description, is that I believe that there are fallen angels.
Oh, yes.
You know, there are some that are in chains, and we'll talk. That's another day. But there are those fallen angels that fell, that are still workers with Lucifer. And when you say that he's able to morph and be able to change and have all this information and he can appear, they can appear as an angel of light. Yeah. That means they can take on any form that they want to take on, and that they can interact with humans as well. And you will not even, when the Bible talks about beware of those whom you entertain, because they have entertained angels unaware. So we're always thinking of that being a godly angel.
Yes.
And that's not what he's talking about there as well. Mm-hmm. When he's talking about beware of who you entertain, because you have entertained angels unaware, that's good angels and bad angels. Mm-hmm. Fallen angels, good angels. And these people here who have evidently done some things with gurus and all this stuff, and their identification has all this description of who they are. No mother, no father, no beginning, no end, and things like that. Well, they start giving they don't have a mother, they don't have a father. That makes sense?
It does.
Go ahead.
But what makes this guy kind of unique is that at the time that Steve Jobs had met this man, he appeared to be about an 18-year-old boy, 18-year-old man.
Not Steve Jobs.
No, the guru guy.
The guru.
And they would go into a cave there in India, and they would pray. And Steve Jobs publicly said, I had a lot of the enlightenment for what I would do to bring the computer to such a small degree. What Steve Jobs really did, and if you got to think about it, when we went to the moon in '69, the computer system we had, the IBM setup that we had at that time, I'm not sure how many gigabytes it was.
It wasn't much.
It was probably about compared to one.
It was like 1 meg.
1 meg.
I think that was all meg. And they said that a wristwatch, you know, one of our little wristwatches that has the digital time on it, that on that wristwatch is more computing power than what that sent us to the moon.
What your iPhone just talked to you does more now than what that one did.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that wasn't very much. Most of that went to the moon was relay logic.
And that was sitting in Houston. That's set at Houston. And that was it. That was it.
Everything else done slide rules.
Yes. And so when we look at this, and he claims that through meditation and all this, he learned all that he got to do what he was able to do. And then you realize that all this meditation and all this summoning for leadership through
you think he was summoning demons?
Well, I know he did because one of the demons that they were involved with, we know it was a Hindu goddess, and they would even tell you she had 4 arms and 4 hands, and she would enlighten them on how to progress humanity forward. Now, anybody who cohorts with the devil, and anybody who cohorts into satanic activities, spiritualism, Hinduism, you're playing with the devil. And when you do that, you open your mind for all kinds of enlightenment, and some of it will, in the long run, will be your demise. But when we look at this, he was just one person with this aspiration.
How many 4 arms?
4 arms and 4 hands.
Is that the Lake Shammai?
Yeah,
La Shammai?
Yeah.
And it's the Hindu goddess of wealth. Listen now, wealth, health, fortune, and prosperity. Would teach them how to do with things to how to become prosperous.
Yes.
Very wealthy. I guess she or it imparted some knowledge he needed to be, and we become millionaires or billionaires.
And when you look at some of these people that did these inventions, you look at Tesla, and they were very introverted people. Very.
Did you hear? I mean, have you really studied Tesla as far as what they say, how he got his communication? I mean, how he got his ideas.
I have read a lot about Tesla.
Well, Tesla back in the 1900s, early 1900s. He's the one that was, it was who would be AC or DC, and how would electricity be propagated, throughout the world and all. And so anyway, AC won out. And what would happen is that his idea was that he would build a tower, and that he would be able to send electricity to everybody's home through the air free. I go, woohoo! He did that. I mean, he's the man that's going to really knock the socks off all these electric companies, aren't he? He's going to send it through the air free. Of course, that's how you get the Tesla's coil, to where what you could take a light bulb, a fluorescent tube, and get it close to one of his, then you would see that spark, and the light bulb would light up. Well, that was his philosophy, that you would have a receiver at your house, and you would be able to light up, your bulbs and do whatever you wanted to do there. But he got his ideas that he would go into a trance, and that he believed that he was communicating with people off of the planet.
Yes.
And that he was getting the ideas, and what he needed to do was through those communications with these electronic communications and things like that. Now, we're just saying that because being preachers or what have you, and of us looking, it's the same thing as summoning demons.
That's it.
And that these these demons are giving ideas and giving things away. But make sure, rest assured, and I can say this, just say to the person who receives the information, that they receive nothing without losing something. The devil never gives up anything without gaining something.
That's right.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So whatever he gave him, something of him was in return, whether it be his health, whatever it was, he gave in return, because that's just the way the devil works. He never gives up ground. So even in that, when we give up and we gain technology, okay, from an evil source, that humanity loses something.
Correct.
Oh, does that make sense what we just said?
Does make sense.
And that's a good questioning that we're asking today. Are you summoning demons through your smartphone, or what is actually?
Well, you know, a lot of the technology that people carry in their hands is used to give praise to the devil on a regular basis. The information that people pull up, and the information and some of the entertainment that people pull up at a microsecond, just a couple pushes of a button here and there, the device itself it can be used for a positive way, or it can be used in a negative way. And I believe it's used more in a negative way
than we even realize.
Right. Yeah. And
do you want to run that video?
Yes, let's run that video. I think this is Elon Musk, and we're going to play one of his interviews. It's about 2 minutes long, 2.5 minutes long. But I think it's interesting. It's talking about artificial intelligence.
I like this. I know a lot of people like that.
And basically, he is talking about they are summoning the devil if they continue with this scientific progress.
All right, here we go.
It's hard to call Elon Musk a technophobe. The Tesla CEO has been a vocal proponent of space exploration, the electric car, and something called a hyperloop. But there's one bit of future tech Musk isn't so keen on: artificial intelligence. And during a recent MIT Aerospace Symposium, Musk issued a grave warning about the potential dangers.
We are experiencing a technological problem right now in technology, and the computer is buffeting right now. So anyway, when this thing here finally catches up to where we're at here, and we have some download speeds here at this radio station that is unbelievable. But anyway, well, you know what happens is when you look at the way these things here start up as far as technology, I think that there are things that are happening with our technology that when we say is demonic, is that most people who does work in electronics. Now, I've went to school for electronics. I'm just not talking about in the Navy. And, you know, people say, well, I'm in the Navy, and bless God, we know how to do it. So we're not talking about the Navy. Well, we're talking about, I worked in a plant, an industrial plant, to where when we were like the only technician, myself and another man was running our shift at the middle of the night. We were the only two that were there. One was the mechanic, and I was the E&I tech that was there. And we had the entire plant. We had millions of dollars worth of equipment and processes, and we were the only ones that could fix it. There was nobody else. There was nobody else to call. Now, we did have others to call that we wanted to, but we were the ones, the first line to do that. So we went to the schools to, you know, learn electronics and learn how a lot of this stuff works. But a lot of people would tell you things like this here, is that when it gets down to a point of them discovering things, is that all they know is that when they do this and they apply voltage in this little area here, I'm talking about small amounts and micros, that we know that this happens. We apply this happens. And then, of course, they base a law off of that because of the repeatability of it. And and a lot of people call those things that happen to them, they call them, a lot of them, a magic box. Hear what I said? They say, well, how does this thing work? Oh, it's just a magic box. Yeah. You get this in and you get that out. Now, I do realize that there are schematics, and I do know how they've done all the technology on that to make happen. But also, I believe when we get down to the nano and getting down to the very, very small microbe and all this stuff, then they just know that when they start searching in these areas and studying these areas, they know that when they apply this happens. They apply this happens. I believe that now don't think I'm crazy now.
Yeah, go ahead. I won't think that.
I believe that some of the technology is demonic.
Yeah.
And when I say that, is that they know that if they do this happens, and they don't know why.
Yes.
Do you understand what I mean? They don't understand the principle behind it, that we know that this happens. And I believe that when we invest in that technology and then we start to build our infrastructure off of that technology that we know when this happens, but it's demonic.
Yeah.
That at any moment in time, then Satan's in control of the technology.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It
what I'm
does
saying?
make sense.
And I think that that's where a lot of this is going.
And
with a lot of
there's
this.
a lot of things that are happening behind the scenes that most people know nothing about.
Of AI research.
Here we go.
With artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know all those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, he's sure he can control the demon. Didn't work out.
Of course, we've all seen plenty of big-budget sci-fi warnings about havoc-wreaking robots, but Musk has actually been pretty consistent with his AI phobia. In June, he told CNBC his investments in AI research were meant to keep an eye on the technology, and a tweet from early August warned artificial intelligence could be potentially more dangerous than nukes. But this is the first time demons have been brought into the conversation, and a few sites took Musk to task for his hyperbole. A CNET writer quips, "Who knows what demonic hellscape could emerge if we ever let artificially intelligent machines get a hold of a Ouija board." While Mashable writes, "Forget Tony Stark, the comic book character most often associated with Musk. It may be time to start thinking Doctor Strange." Pentagram? Really, Elon? The concerns of Musk are somewhat timely. AI research has hit a new wave of popularity among big tech companies. Google recently acquired 2 artificial intelligence companies, adding to its growing stable of AI researchers. And Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg mentioned artificial intelligence was a key part of Facebook's mission and his much talked about Chinese Q&A. But despite smarter and smarter computer algorithms, most experts still say AI development is a long way off. A recent Computer World article noted that while there have been a lot of developments on specific aspects of AI, other pieces of the puzzle haven't seen any recent progress. For the record, the recent MIT talk Musk gave focused mostly on space exploration and Mars rather than satanic androids. He talked at length about the problems and potential solutions around a colony on Mars.
Now listen to this here. The whole time that she's talking about this, she's almost like in a giggle or a smile.
A giggle, like she don't believe
I
it.
don't believe none of this here. And I'm going, she just doesn't really. Well, it's kind of like those people maybe who are listening to us.
Yeah.
I could say that they really don't understand.
Yeah. I saw a cartoon one time, and somebody was on a bus, and they said, Siri or Watson, whichever one of those things you have, look up something. I can't remember what it was, but when they did, everybody on the bus was turning off their phone because they didn't want their Siri or Watson to be looking up the same thing that this guy in the back was telling his to. And so
hold that thought right there.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hold that thought right there, and we're going to run our Lee Moore special here for you. You ready? Thank you, Lee Moore, for all that you do. Here we go.
This is Lee Moore of Lee Moore Pool Services, and you're listening to 99.9 WUCC FM. Contact me for all your pool needs at 803-707-2258. Thank you, and God bless.
All right, and then we're back.
That's some powerful stuff. You know, it's just that technology has gotten where most people are ignorant to what they actually hold in their hand
and where it comes from.
And where it comes from.
Yeah, the source of the technology.
And what the backdrop is behind it. What can you know, they're talking about now that there's televisions now that can be looking at you when you're looking at it. They're saying that they're going to have cell phones in the next year or two that will wipe out the cell phone industry because you'll be on a smartphone and you'll actually use it as your telephone, and you'll be able to look at the person that you're talking to, and they can look at you from wherever they are in the world. And so
well, that's how we're going to be able to see a lot of the technology is going to be used in the last days, to see what happens with Antichrist.
Yes.
To see what happens around the world, and it'd be instantly around the world.
And that's the one thing that, you know, I really, you know, I know we only have, you know, an hour today on the program, but I look at some of these things that most people do not read about or study about. There was a man a long time ago. His name was Alan Turing. Now, Alan Turing, by the time he was 6 years of age, was classified as a mathematical genius. Very few people know anything about him, but he was the man who solved the Enigma code, that the Enigma machine was creating a havoc for the British and the American military. The Germans had a code machine that could not be broken, and he was able to break it. The only person that could break it. And he, he's credited for not just inventing decoding machines, but creating the first computer. And so when we look at this man, there's very little known about him, and but he was a man who believed in going into trances. He believed in
say that again.
He'd go into trances, and he would get mathematical numbers. Now, while he was
that's what I'm talking about.
When he's laying in his relaxing chair, he said that he would get visionary numbers that would come into his mind, and he could see them. And I can't, but he'd see them, and then when he woke up, he'd go and write them out, and then he would take them and he would find out what that formula was about, and he would be able to determine what that formula was for. And so nobody else, and that's how he said he saw the Enigma code itself. And so, but this man was, he was a closet homosexual. And to make a long story short, when he was in his mid-40s, he took a cyanide pill and killed himself. And so, when we look at some of the minds that have been out there that were visionaries and they were able to do things, they seem to have a lot of mystical beliefs. They had a lot of things that were contrary to the Word of God. They were contrary to moral turpitude. They just had a lot of problems. And then when you think about what they were able to accomplish, and then you wonder, were they dabbling in such a cauldron of iniquity that they were just really instruments for information to be passed on?
Well, I think people have to realize that there's only two sources of information or power. And you either plugged in above or you plugged in below. That's it. And people have to realize there is no in between. Yeah. There is no middle ground to where it's just me doing this here. Yeah. Either God's doing this here or the devil's doing this, and you have to realize, and that's what we're looking at is where are these people plugged in at, and where did this come from? Tesla talks about how again, summoning off-planet entities. Yes. And Albert Einstein, same thing. Same thing. Is that he got a lot of his information that was, secondhand. When I say secondhand, it was imparted into him, and he knows that. Yeah. In that, and you have a lot of these different ones that believe that they have contacted people or aliens, and they have introduced ideas into people and brought things to fruition around here. Well, I know you. When you go to 1 Corinthians, it talks about when you come to the Lord's table, you can't be at the Lord's table and be demonic. There's a righteousness that has to be around that table, right? And so you can't have evil and good mixing. And so I believe. So if you do, you have a problem. You have a problem. But what we're talking about is people who have been called visionaries in our world. But we're also seeing that when we look behind the curtain, we find out that some of these people were involved in demonic activities. They were involved in seances. They were involved in the occult in so many different ways that it makes you very curious. Were they given information to be able to progress in the direction that they went? So let's take from you said like 1947. Yes. When we had let's do this here. Let's look at the progression of the last 100 years, or when we talk about going from horse and buggies to where we're at now. Correct. Of course, around the turn of the century, of the 20th century, coming through, and if you made bridles and horse wagon wheels, you know, you were trying to fight this newfangled thing called an automobile, and it'd never take off, they would say. You know, it was even to the point to where, you know, they had laws against automobiles in those days.
Correct.
That when an automobile came to a four-way stop before an intersection in the road, that they would have to get out, either turn the automobile off, get out, and fire a gun in the air. Yeah. Fire a gun in the air, then turn around and then get back in their car, and then they could look both ways and they could go across. The giving the horse, because the automobile scared the horse so bad.
Correct.
So they were given the, hey, I'm coming through. Those were the kind of laws that they had back then.
Yeah.
You see how things are given away now. You see an automobile coming down the road, you know, the horse had better get out of the way. Instead of the automobile get out of the way, the horse has got to get out of the way. You see how things change around? But that's how messed up things were at the turn of the century as we're coming this way. So what happened? Why did things move so fast? When we look at things, I'm talking about technology really changing so fast. And talking about electronics. That's what we're talking about. So in 1947, 1948, when Israel becomes a nation.
That's where we were headed, Pastor.
Yeah, when Israel becomes a nation.
Yes.
That all of a sudden, you know, I believe on the devil's timetable, he realizes Scripture that when he sees a nation born in a day, and that's what happened with Israel, that all of a sudden he realizes he's only got, you know, he says that generation, the Scripture says that that generation shall not pass away.
Correct.
Till they see the Son of Man coming again.
That's right.
So what's going to happen is that from 1947, 1948, from that time frame moving forward, he knows he only has a few short years to get the world in control.
Right.
To be able to bring about this Antichrist that has been spoken of in the last days. So then what starts to happen in the world, at that time frame, we start seeing the UFO phenomenon.
Yes.
All of a sudden, Israel becomes a nation. UFO starts showing up.
Roswell,
the crash at Roswell, reverse engineering.
Correct.
That these demonic entities that we believe are the offspring of fallen angels and the entity beings, that they are demonic entities.
The extraterrestrial highway across the center of America.
So, I mean, I'll let you pick it up from there. So that's what we're seeing. And with the reverse engineering from their technology, and these little gray aliens or tall whites or whatever you want to say, they are giving away all this information to all these people all this time, is the devil's workman to enslave humanity at the very last push of humanity. And that's what we're seeing with all our smartphones, tablets, and all. And I've got them all. I've got Androids. I've got the Apple phones. I've got tablets. I got 4 or 5. Now I got my own computers. You know, I've got 3 computers myself, laptops I carry with me. I got two laptops that I carry with me all the time, so I can work and do what I need to do.
And it holds so much information. I remember when my brother passed away, he worked for the Boeing industry, and he was in Huntsville, Alabama. And my brother did all kinds of research for Boeing, and I remember when he passed away, they made a phone call to me, wanting to know if they would have any would I have any problem them going in and taking my brother's computers. And I said, well, why do you need to do that? And they said, well, he worked on a lot of projects, and we want to just make sure that there's nothing he was working on that needs to be gotten out. And I, you know, being a true patriot and everything, I said, yeah, I wouldn't hinder y'all from.
They could have got just the Russians to got it.
Yeah, you know,
especially nowadays what they talk about.
Well, they would have blamed that on Trump then. But President Trump, bless his heart, the man's got so much coming at him. You know, we were talking about von Braun a while ago. And you know how he was one of the many scientists that came over at the end of World War II. And they were I think did they get them out of Belgium or something like that?
I can't remember where they were at.
But he had so much to do with the rocket development in this country. And one of the things that he said, one time he was asked, how were his scientists and him able to develop the speed and technology that they gained to do what they did for the rocket industry and for NASA. And he said, we had a lot of help. And when they said, who did you have help from? He said, from them out there. And so they have all these scientists have said or stated in some form or fashion they had outside help or interference or gifted information so that they could progress forward.
Right. Well, you know what I think with when I look at the World War II and the rise of Adolf Hitler.
Yes.
And, you know, in a lot of ministers and preachers, they preach about the Nazi Germany taking over America or taking over the world, and how can one man do this? And he was going to do it.
He was.
I mean, you know, until America stepped in, the Allies stepped in, because he had the ideas of what he was going to do. And when we talk about that type of spirit that was there, how he hated Jews, hated Christianity, was engulfed in the occult,
big time,
in those things, and coming up with all this weaponry and all this technology that's out there, and brought in the best scientists and went all over the world looking for giants, looking for demons, looking for artifacts that would bring supernatural power to them. That kind of messenger of Satan that was there, when we say and we preach about Antichrist coming, and that he's going to come with all lying wonders and deception and all these things that we're talking about, is people need to look at Adolf Hitler and what he did, and how he just turned the hearts and minds of all the people towards him through his wonderful speech, and how that he was just able to mesmerize people in that. Is that God, I believe, gave us a snapshot
of the Antichrist.
Of the Antichrist, of how it's going to be.
Yes.
And it gives us, preachers, something to mark with and say, that's the way it's going to be. Just like that, see how he did it, that's the way it's going to be. Of course, then that was not the end of, you know, that was not the Antichrist as well. But that same spirit that was an Antichrist spirit and anti-Israel spirit, the anti-Semite spirit, that he is going to have that same kind of spirit that's going to try to come against the Jews to wipe them out, and of course wipe out Christianity as well, and spread his own Nazism or his own Islam throughout the whole world.
Yeah, and when you look at people like Dr. Mengele, people like that were given they were literally given unlimited scientific. They were told, do whatever you want. But you have to make your scientific analysis just to the chancellor. And so what they were doing experiments on people. They were injecting people with just different chemicals to see what the reaction would be.
Oh yeah.
They were taking.
Hold it right there. You hold that thought. They were taking what? You hold it right there. 803-335-3131. You want to jump in with us? You're going to have to jump in now. 803-335-3131. Got a comment, got a question. And they were doing what with them?
They were taking people like people that were like twins. They were taking people that were dwarfs. They were taking people that were giants in their size. They wanted those people big time so that they could do certain types of studies. Because especially if they had twins, they could do certain experiments on one to compare it to the other twin to see what they were able to come up with. But they did so many horrific things that a lot of the things that they did, a lot of people in the world don't know all the stories. They don't read all the stuff. One of the things they did is they did studies to the mind. They would take people and they used electrocution to try and see what it would do to the human brain. And there were things that after the war that even in this country, in California, for instance, they were literally taking people in insane asylums and they were putting them through shock treatment that would leave some of them with such messed up minds after they went through what they went. And then the military went through psychological testing for psychic and telepathic studies and all this everything. All that stuff came out of the German World War II scientific visionaries who were trying to make discoveries.
Right.
And so, and then when you come out of the medical part of it, then you had your visionaries within the German scientific community that were wanting to develop the bomb. They were trying to develop the bomb. They say if Hitler had developed the bomb before the United States, we'd all be speaking German today.
Eating sauerkraut.
That's it. And so science has been has the speed of technology, but it's
has always been coupled with the occult.
Always
has been coupled with the occult.
That's it.
And I think that's one of the things we're talking about. Your smartphone and the occult. I mean, there's games that you can play on there that is occult.
Correct.
You know, the Pokemon stuff and the Pokey-Go or whatever it was.
And you know, that's fun. People consider that fun stuff.
It's all occult as well.
But it's all occult. But the thing about
Ouija boards, electronic Ouija boards, and all that stuff.
Some of that stuff is really what I call it's eye candy for people, for smartphones and things. But then when you think about the other stuff that little device can do, and what it's going to be able to do in 2 years from now, your iPhone will be obsolete. Something else will be.
Something will say. You ever heard someone say it's got a mind of its own?
That's it. That's it.
It's got a mind of its own.
And the thing is, people let that device control them.
Yeah.
I mean, I know.
Hey, if that doesn't let you know that something's not right with it, is that people get mesmerized to it to where if they don't have their smartphone or their tablet or whatever they got, I mean, it's kind of like going through withdrawals.
Yes.
Did you hear what we just said?
Yes.
It's kind of like almost a demonic draw to it in habit. So using the I'm not against technology. Listen here. You can look at my camera right now. When I look at my my smartphone here, I can, from this desk or anywhere in the world, I got an internet connection. Well, not even internet connection, as long as I can get on the web.
Yeah.
Is, to the web as far as like through a satellite, that I can control the radio station from where on my phone. You've seen me do that.
Correct.
I'd be riding down the road. I'd be in Florida. Yeah. I don't want to listen to that man preach. And if I want to listen to someone else preach, turn it right on. So I'm not against the technology and all. Yes. But also I do realize, though, that technology, he said, would abound in the last days. And that we see the technological advancement coming from Roswell with the invention of the silicon chips and all those type things, and then the propulsions that they have and all the technology that they have as far as the stealth technology. And it gets to a point to where we don't know why this works. We just know it works. And I think then that's when you step into the realm of, let's do it like this here. I don't know why I put my hands on this Ouija board, but when I do this here, it starts to spell out certain. I don't know why it works, but it just works. See what I just said?
I know exactly.
We don't know why, but it just works, and this is what happens. And I think you risk that in technology and not realizing what's going on.
There was a man being interviewed the other day, and I don't recall what channel or whatever, but they were talking about the North Korean problem, and this is how evil the mind of men is. They asked him what would he do about the problem in North Korea, and he said, "Well, I would just create a biological virus in that country that when it went viral, they would have no choice but to beg for help, and then we'd go in there and we would straighten it out." And I thought, whoa, man, this guy's mind is warped. But then it's also scientifically possible. I mean, I hate to say it, but we have that kind of mindset in our world today because they had it back in World War II.
Yeah, well, to bring that to home here is that, and you have to forgive me because I just don't remember the author's name because I just didn't read his books. Yeah. And when you say it, then yes, I do remember the name then. But he wrote Tom Clancy. That was it. Tom Clancy. I don't know if you ever read any Tom Clancy stuff.
I read Covert and Subversive.
Yeah, I read more of Dean Koontz stuff, and the occult stuff and things like that. But anyway, and praise God, I've been delivered from that. But here's the thing: is that Tom Clancy wrote one time about an attack on a city, and to where they went to the reservoir, to the dam, and they put this biological agent over into the water, and it went down the waterway, and then it filtered into all the water systems and all the stuff that the people were drinking through the plants and all the stuff, and killed a lot of people. And guess where that story was written about? Clark Hill Dam, right up here.
Oh my goodness!
Yes, right up here, the Clark Hill Dam. I think they call it Lake Thurman Dam. We for the old folks, we still call it Clark Hill Dam. And that's where that story was written at, where they released a biological agent, went down through the waterway and killed hundreds of thousands of people. And that's exactly what you were talking about over there. Those stories by Tom Clancy was the thing, that using some type of biological agent through all the system to get people. Isn't that amazing?
And we hate to think of the horror of that, but they have viruses now that are sealed in chambers underground, under like 20-foot walls and stuff.
Well, that's up
vaults.
that's up in is it Alaska?
Yeah.
Where hundreds of hundreds of feet in the ground. They've got viruses that are frozen in the ground, because they say we can't let this stuff out.
Yeah.
If we let this stuff out, there might not be another world. They have to wipe the whole world out.
Yeah. And one of the things that
Now let the devil get a hold of that, y'all.
Yeah.
Let him get a hold of it. I tell you what he's going to do. He gonna wipe the church out. I believe that.
Yeah.
He'll try to do that anyway.
And seriously, I think mankind's getting to the point. They want to eliminate the nuclear prospect and go to the viral.
Tell me about the apple.
The Apple
phone.
The Apple, the concept for it came out of India.
Okay.
It came out of the Maharishi. How you say that? I can't say all these Indian names. The Maharisha or whatever. Steve Jobs said when he got that idea, he was with the guru. He was eating an apple, and the guru gave him his vision to Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs took the whole thing with the bitten apple and everything, and he said when he went back to America and he started working with some people in regards to developing the computer in a smaller format, and also compacting the ability to do communications in society in a more expedient way. He took every bit of that he gained when he was in India by being with these spiritualists there, and what he had received into his mind. A lot of what he did, he said he did after he had been in trances and trance meditation. You got to be careful turning your mind over to the devil. There's a lot of people, I see it today, they're into yoga.
Brother, if the Christian world just knew what yoga was and how you open your mind and your spirit, man,
correct,
to demonic entities. And so, but Pastor, if it was okay, I'm sure my pastor would not let us be doing it in the fellowship hall in the back if there was something really wrong with it. I'll say this here. Your pastor absolutely does not understand the world of yoga and the demonic activity that when you are doing that, you open yourself up to. He needs to go through deliverance, and somebody needs to help educate the Christian people.
A lot of pastors don't read or study to the extent that they need, and then when they do study, they stay in the Bible, and they stay in a central area or theme. I know people that don't preach anywhere except Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and that's it. I know people that won't preach prophecy because they say it confuses the people, and that they get nervous and inquisitive, and so they say, well, I just completely stay away from those books of the Bible. So you have to really find out where your preacher is centered when it comes to does he really prepare himself on Sunday morning, or is some of his ideas questionable?
Wow. Well, good. Brother, we're on the last minute. Let's wrap that thing up. Bring it on
I enjoy this. I tell you,
We didn't get nobody to bite today, did we?
No, we didn't, but I know there's some closet listeners out there. I know there's people out there that listen to us, and we just
Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Open your mind to the Word. Open your mind to asking God to reveal things to you.
There you go.
The mysteries of God are there. You just have to study and be smarter than the devil. Learn to master sin and not allow it to confront you at the door and take over your life.
All right, I've been your host with Shotgun, Steve Watson. God bless you.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to this week. Thank you for tuning in today. We've been your hosts, Henry Schaefer and Steve Hall. The end times are here. Anything is possible. Are you ready? Don't miss the next episode of Special Edition End Time Revelation.